So, is the twin flame finally awakening? And what does that mean? What does this desire mean, which is a natural desire, that you would like to be met and mirrored in how you experience yourself as someone that has a spiritual intuition, that knows that you can call that twin flame that divine love that you feel in your heart, and that knows that this can come true in the physical world too, and that has set it as a goal to make that happen, and you call that union. And that is a form of, well, how you define yourself, and you would like to see that reflected in your twin flame too, with the same words and the same understanding and the same energy and the same, yeah, goal to come together in relationship and make that come true, that divine love that becomes a marriage and a family and a mission business and all the things that you want to do together. The intimacy of it. And it's normal and it's natural to have that desire, I feel, you know? But it becomes a little bit awkward sometimes, because then people think like, but I think that's my twin flame over there. And, I'm just having this feeling that when I look at them and their behavior and whatnot and how they react to me, and how they maybe not react to me, and how they maybe, speaking back to me or stopped speaking back to me at all, or maybe even blocked me on Facebook or whatnot, that I'm like, but they're not speaking about it in the same words. They're not wanting it to sort of chase this the same way as I do. It just seems as if they're not awake, at least not awakened to the twin flame and this terminology and this idea and this desire for the relationship and the union and the family and the mission business and the being together and staying together and all of it. But I am, you see, and that's where it gets a little awkward often. Because as I have spoken many times about, the twin flame is the true twin flame. That's what you already are at the core of your heart. That's where you are a twin flame. So you can't do without it because you're a human being. Everyone has that. It's like the one that mirrors you the most, as well as in deep love, divine love, and also in your blocks to love. But it's the one that is the sort of other expression of the union core self that you share. It's the complementary expression of that. And when you are the divine feminine, they're the divine masculine, and vice versa, on that deeper level of your soul where you are in union, that invisible blueprint that you actually are. And then to say that, but they're somewhere else than where I am, they're in an unawakened consciousness and I am in an awake consciousness, because that's what you're sort of saying. So it's really a question like, what are you exactly meaning with this? What are you exactly talking about? Because if you understand this correctly, the twin flame is the one that you naturally, organically, already in truth can't be made undone, already together in union with, in truth, at the core of you. You share one consciousness. That's the definition of being twin flames. So when you're saying, but I'm in an awake consciousness and I'm so much busy with this word twin flames, and I know that God wants us to be together and I'm working towards it and I'm hoping that it will happen. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm trying and doing and all kinds of things, but they're not awakened. They don't talk about that. Maybe they talk about something else. Maybe they don't want to talk to me anymore at this moment for a little bit. Or they even blocked me or something from communicating. So they're not awakened. So what are you doing then? Aren't you declaring that you're not one consciousness? Aren't you going against the whole idea of being twin flames yourself when you believe this idea? You're declaring that you are the awakened consciousness and they're the non-awakened one. Or you're sitting there feeling this self definition that you are so awakened, awaiting for them to wake up. And you feel so good about yourself because you're so patient in waiting for them to wake up. But what are you doing? Aren't you declaring that there are two consciousnesses and that you're not sharing that? So you're sort of declaring that it's not your twin flame. And I know this is very like a popular topic to speak about it like that among people that talk about twin flames, isn't it? But there's some sort of a logic flaw in this whole topic, isn't it? Because when you're awakened and they not, like, but where's that point of your twin flames? Where's the point of you share one consciousness? That's like off the table suddenly. So you're just declaring yourself that it's not your twin flame, that it's maybe a false twin flame, that you're like projecting your twin flame desire on, which happens to all of us, or nearly all of us, a lot of us. It happened to me too. That's okay. It can be a phase in your journey. And when you do the true twin flame inner work, you'll grow through that phase towards a new phase and you'll be together with your true twin flame. So don't worry. It'll be all right in the end. If you do the true twin flame inner work under guidance of the true teacher. But meanwhile, you might be just misleading yourself when you think about this thing like this, like the awakened one and the unawakened one. You know, also a question like, aren't you like, isn't that a little bit egotistical? Do we actually need to make ourselves be the awakened one? And to sort of condemn them to being the unawakened one, just why? To make ourselves feel better or something? I mean, how sort of spiritual is that exactly? How is that twin flame love? You're just maybe trying to make yourself feel better, to put someone else by putting someone else down. Well, that's not very spiritual. That's kind of narcissistic. And where's this divine twin flame love in that act? So it's really interesting when you go deeper with that whole phenomenon of this topic. Like, is this even a sane topic, you know? And, you know, don't worry, lighten up. I mean, I'm not condemning anyone or whatever. That's not the point of this video. We're just trying to discuss things and see, you know, what it might really be and make you think about it differently and come to new conclusions that I hope are also helpful and educational, you know. So is your twin flame finally awakening? So because you are both part of the same consciousness, I think we can safely say that that is actually the definition of twin flames. Because when you come into the harmonious twin flame union consciousness that I teach, that I pass on to you guys, that that like thrives on this whole point, like that you are both together in one consciousness, reaching the harmonious union state of it. And that's where it will go easy for you. That's where you are together. That's where you love each other. That's where, it's harmonious. You'll get all the things out of it that your heart desires. And that is a harmonious union consciousness. It's one thing where you are together inside. And it's not two things, the one is awakened and the other not. And the word awaken or whatever, awake, awoken, well, anyway, that's to be clearly an idea of consciousness and standing in it in a realized, open-hearted way. That would be maybe like awakened and non-awakened or unawakened or something. Yeah, then you're like, that is still closed or something. So how does that function, that one of you is in that union consciousness that you share and the other not? Well, then it's not your twin flame. Like, dude. But of course I get it. Like, what people mean is like, yeah, you're both twin flames, but one is aware of it and the other not. So, I'm not stupid. Of course I sort of kind of understand what you mean. But in truth, when you have done the journey to completion, you just realize, know, experience, conclude. You cannot do anything else than conclude that is just fundamentally untrue. When you are with your true twin flame in harmonious union, where you only can get together when you both awaken at the core of you to what that means and choose it. But we're talking about the core of you, and that's like sort of the invisible core of your heart. I understand that it gets a little abstract here. That's totally true. And that's also why there is a teacher, that can look into that invisible realm for you, with you. So I guess what people talk about is that, like, okay, so that inner thing can happen. And that, I would say, is, in my experience, that you could say is the harmonious union moment, which is the only recognizable and precise moment that actually happens on the twin flame journey, led correctly. That leads also to the true twin flame. And when I look at how that is then there, and how I experienced that, and how that went further, and how I saw my own students that I brought there also be there and develop further, etc., and how they were before it and during it and after it. When I look at that in my inner mind, so to speak, what I see is that, well, so there's a difference in a sense of like, okay, so at the core, you've said yes to that inner being twin flames together. But there is, like, let's say, the development of the outer person of flesh and blood that also is in the same realm as what we say as the ego personality. And that one can have different reactions temporarily. That can make you think like it makes sense to speak about them as unawakened and yourself as awakened. But that's an illusion. Because the realm of the body of the ego personality, of the psychology, is the realm of illusion, or as the Indians say in Vedic spirituality, Maya. Or when we look at the fragment of my own book that I read earlier in this live, it is a hologram. It's Maya. It's, in a sense, unreal. It's an illusion with which you can have wonderful twin flame experiences together in the flesh. And that's also where that sort of illusion becomes sacred and beautiful and aligned with the divine. But it is like the part of us that is the illusion. That is the part of us that is, well, the outside. Yes, the body is outside. Yes, the ego is outside of you. The ego personality is outside of you. The body is outside of you. The you is the inside one. That at a certain moment is in the consciousness state of harmonious twin flame union. But the outside of you is the illusion of you, is the body, is this ego personality. And that part can still go and move through certain outer developments that we see and can smell, hear, touch, and understand and communicate and whatnot. That can look a certain way and another way not. And it can have a little bit of a development and it can change. And that illusion part of you can sort of go from like, and of them too, can go from like, well, they're not really open to picking up the phone when I call, towards they're more open up to picking up the phone when I call, towards entirely open up for me when I call them up, until they want to be in my own house all the time, until now we're engaged and now we're married and now we have a family and now we also have a mission business and we're thriving and our entire abundance is coming in too. Okay, so that's, let's say these are stages that this outer form can go through. And when you're in a little bit of the, so in our heart, in truth, we've said yes, and that's the harmonious union moment, and you're not there yet, which is okay. Don't be mistaken about that. I can bring you there, but that's the yes moment. That's the awakening moment. But still then, like the outer you, the body, the ego personality is still in this thing like, things are starting to maybe shift and align in a different way. And the flesh is a little slow, okay? Or reacts in a couple of different ways, in a couple of phases or whatnot. Maybe they first acknowledge you and then a little bit not, and then they acknowledge you a lot deeper suddenly. And how the body and the psychology can go through a couple of sinus movements to develop in the outer world what the inner awakening had already established. And that can maybe look like less awakened or more awakened in the relativity of that expression of Maya, of the flesh, of the hologram, of the illusion of your ego personality in the body. And that's okay. That's normal. So what is the thing about awakening? Well, maybe it just needs to go back to union consciousness, develop union consciousness. That's the point. It's what I say all the time. That's what you need to do. And then the rest will fall into place. And you won't need to worry about these questions about, are they awakened or are they not? Are they finally awakening? So what people mean also, I think, is there's a lot of, women that, or divine feminines also, which is mostly the same, that talk about the twin flame topic online and whatnot. And, well, look at it like this. Who are, with like common sense and historic notion and psychological insight, who are the ones that are very busy in life with relationships in general and wanting to have a love relationship and getting married and stuff and building this family and stuff, who are very busy with that and who are not as much. Women are busy with that. Women are more inclined to be busy with the topic relationships, love, twin flames, building a family. That's just common sense. In general, it's less of a male topic in a sense to be focused on it. Of course, men are just as much loving beings. They also want to have a family. They also want to have a marriage and love and a relationship. But they're, in a sense, not focused on it as a topic. Women are. So it's not strange that you hear women talk about the topic of twin flames, which is, of course, a very deep love and relationship topic in a sense. And they will think that that is very loving, very spiritual, very relational. And they will think that that equals to the idea of being awakened to love, to relationship, to the deeper capacity of it. But the fact that maybe men or the divine masculines, or like they mostly will overlap, are not necessarily as much focused on that topic as a topic, it doesn't mean that they're not awakened. Maybe they're just focused differently in life, but just as much sinking deeper into the truth of life. As you are underway sinking deeper into the truth of life. But maybe they do that while being focused more on work, for instance, which is not strange. That's actually common sense, kind of normal. But that does not make females or divine feminines better or more awakened. I think that's a big mistake in a sense, and it can be a whole bunch of arrogance, which you would need to correct inside of yourself to be able to be with a true twin flame in harmonious union, because that's not accessible with arrogance. That may be good to know. Or at least not sustainable with arrogance. Maybe that's even better to say. So the fact that maybe you, mostly women, watch my videos, which is not necessarily meant for women. That's not what I'm doing here. I'm a spiritual teacher. It's not for women in itself or per se. It's about union. I try to bring people to union. That's my work. People to union. So, what were we talking about? The fact that males may be, for instance, more focused on work or money does not mean that they're any less part of your union consciousness, and does not mean that they're not on the same vibrational depth of that process of sinking deeper into the union consciousness that you already share, because that would not make sense. Because then we're at the same topic again, the topic of then it's not your twin flame, when you would be on a different level of actually sinking deeper in that frequency of your union process. then it's not your twin flame. Which, again, as I always say, does not need to be bad. It just means that your true twin flame is still out there for you. And when you start and keep on doing the true twin flame inner work with the true teacher as guide, you will reach the true twin flame. So don't worry. The false one might fall away, but you're still on the same journey, and you might just be incredibly close to reaching the true thing when the false one falls away. So don't worry. I've seen it all. I know what we're doing. Yeah. Is your twin flame awakening? And there's also this thing, about it, like, the fact that you are twin flames is an organic truth that is built into the deeper reality of what you already are as a human being. It does not need the word twin flames. It does not, in principle, even need all these explanations. It doesn't need even my educational material. Because it is already true. The educational material is only here because it's not well known, and we want to bring it forward and we want to make it come true. And people want to learn something so that they can make it easier come true and right now come true and all of it. And people also need that. And with my education, I have used the word twin flames because why not? And it does describe it accurately, and it is some sort of a tradition. But the words in itself don't matter. You understand? You are twin flames or you're not. You don't need to... Your twin flame doesn't need to have the word twin flame to be your twin flame. They don't need to understand the metaphysica of God and twin flames or something to be your twin flame and act as your twin flame and love you as their twin flame, as your twin flame. That's not necessary. Speaks for itself almost, but there you go. So in that sense, they also don't need to be awakened to this sort of phraseology that we use. For us, it makes sense. And you are part of the organic union that is a shared consciousness in your heart. So we're already talking through you with your twin flame too. And you and me speak in this kind of language. And for us, it works, right? Although for many people on the internet, they sort of kind of use the same phraseology, but they actually don't have the true teaching and the true twin flame, which is another problem, but it is a big problem. Just wanted to mention that again. But they don't need to understand this phraseology to be your twin flame and to go deeper with you and to be with you and to stick with you, etc., and to come into harmonious union with you. That's not necessary. You just need to organically actually go more intimate in the heart with them in that consciousness space. And then they just will be there with you because you're twin flames. And when they're not your twin flame. So that's also not how you can see if your twin flame is awakened, if they understand the phrases or whatnot. They can recognize you as the one they truly unconditionally love, somehow in a different way than they have felt love for other people. And they will feel that because they're your twin flame. But that doesn't need to have a name, how you would call it, for it to be true. You just go from stone to crystal in the heart dimension. And that's where you'll find the union consciousness. And the twin flame will do the same at the same moment as you. I think the perception can easily be sometimes for divine feminines that work with this phraseology, that desire this to make this come true and whatnot. The perception is sometimes relatively easily, that they feel themselves to be awakened. And then within that understanding of, but I can inner see spiritual things, and I have connection with the inner heart, and I felt the divine love, and I have certain spiritual explanation for it, and they make sense, and I understand, and that's certainly true, and I certainly have that too, and I had that too, and I have this perception sort of too. But there's the point. It's a perception. It's not the truth. Because here's an important thing for you to know. That's not what awakening is. It's just not. I'm sorry, but it's not. I was the divine feminine in my union. I was very good in spiritually seeing, spiritually feeling, spiritually everything. And I might have called that awakened or whatnot. I could have called it that. But the truth is that only when I came into harmonious union, the consciousness state, and then started to have that spiritual dimension incarnate into me, move through my actual flesh and blood and daily work and my actions and my communication into the world, that it births itself as the union consciousness step and communication and expression that comes out of me right now. That is coming also closer to the physical form of my true twin flame, because I speak about how this came after harmonious twin flame union, the consciousness state. That birthing process, that's the awakening. And however much, it's easy for me to take myself as an example, but this is really broadly, and also for many divine feminines, I feel, however much I was so right about everything that I could do in my spirituality, and that I felt and was sure about, and I knew, and I everything. Now it is clear to me that that was nothing. The point is, can you make it come true in the flesh? Can you bring that heaven to earth now? That's where the union is. That's where the awakening to the union comes out of you. Not in, I get it. I have inner sight. I pray a lot. I felt all these things in meditation. Well, congratulations. Isn't it beautiful? And isn't it clarity bringing sometimes? But the true awakening is only when you let that align with your actual physical self and then bring heaven to earth. That's what twin flames are. That's where it happens. That's what happens in union consciousness, because that only comes where physicality and that deeper sense of you comes together. And that's where it was very difficult for me. As a divine feminine with all these phraseology and all these knowings and inner experience, like, you have no, it's like my inner experience is, oh my God, like everything. everywhere. Profounder than profound. So, but that was not the point. The point was to express it in the twin flame union. And that's where it came out, that it was a true challenge, and truly slowly. And I started to realize more and more and more that only there I was only awakening very slowly. In very much the opposite of what like the idea of the arrogant, very spiritual, divine feminine would have said earlier. I also could have said that earlier, like, oh, I'm so awakened, and then he's not. But that was nonsense. Because when I truly awakened and truly came into the union consciousness state, it was like such a challenge. It was so slow. I was only barely awakening. And then I understood that this was the truth about myself. And I became more and more into alignment and into communication with my true twin flame, much more intimate, much more realistic. And then he indeed stood a little different in it, which might be recognized by the arrogant divine feminine as, yeah, he's not awakened. He's not really recognizing it yet. Yeah, in like his outer physical ego personality life. Yeah, as if that's important. And it will come when you more and more let it truly sink in. So when I let it truly sink in, and I was slowly moving through this very difficult challenge to come out with it, even when it in spirit already fully had happened. And then I saw actually that it was not more than normal, that he also needed this challenge to work on him slowly. And we were exactly the same in it. Maybe he was like relatively more focused on work. I was relatively more focused on wanting the twin flame relationship because, we are the divine masculine and divine feminine. It's just common sense, nothing strange about it. And you might see that this awakening process also for divine feminine, divine masculine sort of goes into that direction a little in its own way. And that's fine. And it's okay. And some quickenings in that awakening process were on a different time for him than for me. And that had like a play in between us. And, my step forward came. And then I was like, trying to get used to things here and feeling myself out. And then he also sometimes was really upset about things that I did. And that's also good in a sense. I didn't do it for it, but it was also good in a sense because when it had already happened, it was good in a sense because he also needed to do his inner work. So when you are upset, you're actually in the invitation to do your own inner work. So he also needed to have these invitations in himself. And he got on, and then he went there and he was like, feeling himself out and like making the next step. And I was like, I don't know. I need to make the next step. And then, but it was not exactly maybe at the exact same moment. So and it always seems like you are the only one making the step forward and they're doing nothing. And that's because you are outside of time, moving at the same time. Moving at I don't know how you can say that, but within, like, bathed in the same consciousness. I hope it makes sense. Anyway. But that's when I started to see that what the reality was that I was awakening only super duper slow. And I was hardly awake. Only when I came into the union consciousness state of harmonious twin flame union, I started to awaken. And only truly, when it came out of me as an expression, which was a long way through to work through me out into the real world, because I was working through a large healing wave after my harmonious union state. I was healing my trauma, narcissistic trauma, sexual abuse trauma, all of my childhood of some decades ago. With a lot of success. I mean, that was just like a major deal that I could finally get rid of in that time. And that's just one of the things that I'm most proud of in my entire life. And it's one of the best things that I ever done. Very proud of that. But anyway, but that also is only, in a sense, the taking away of the obstacle to awaken more and more, bring heaven to earth, and then be in that awakening movement together with him. Him maybe a little bit differently geared and focused, me a little bit different geared and focused, in a sense, not making the steps at the same time. And in a sense, always feeling that you are only making your own steps in relation to the divine, and in the assurance from God that while you make yours, they make theirs. Although physically it can be a little bit first the one, then the other, first the one, then the other in time. And that was the true awakening process. And it was exactly the same, because we are true twin flames. And there's nothing else. And when it's not that, you're not in harmonious union, and it's not your twin flame. So anyway, that I think is what I wanted to discuss.